on. So we're now recording. So again, I want to welcome Mr. Jeff Ward from Torrington Livestock and from Ward Cattle Company to be able to share with us about market beef health management. Mr. Ward, take it away.
Okay, well, I want to thank everybody that has taken their evening to join us.
You're muted, Jeff, right now. I think you got
I guess on a health process, or talking about health on primarily show cattle, and then I'm going to go through and kind of tell you what we do from.
Jeff, we can't hear you. Can you hear us? I think you might be muted, and I'm not sure. I can't unmute you from here.
It doesn't say I'm muted. Can anybody hear me?
I can't hear you still.
Uh-oh.
Bottom left, maybe there's a microphone, or now you're totally muted. So maybe it's her sound button, Jeff. Try her on her.
Where do I do that?
Nope, they can hear you, Jeff. Sounds good.
You can hear me now? Okay. So I'll start over. When they asked me to do this, I thought that I was primarily going to be talking about how we work our show cattle from the start to finish on health products and stuff like that, and on a day-to-day basis of what we do. So I guess that's kind of what I'm going to do, because that's what I had planned, and then I can answer any other questions that you may have. But so when we get our show cattle in September or October or November, whenever you get them in, what we like to do is we like to bring them home. We'll talk to the producers that we've got them from or our own, and ask what kind of vaccination shots they've been on from the beginning. And we believe in a modified live program. Most people in the community do, or in this industry do now. But we'll bring them home and we'll give them a set of modified live shots usually. And I'm not sponsored by anybody, so I don't care what kind you use, if it's Boveshield Gold 5 or Pyramid 5 with pre-spons or whatever, but we give IBR, PI3, BSV, and then we also give a 7-way shot, and then we will also pour them at that time. And then we'll just pretty much leave those cattle alone for about 2 weeks. We really want them to hit the bunk pretty hard, get started on feed good, so that and they know that that's their home pen. They know that they're safe at that time. We don't want them to have any bad experience the first 2 weeks that they're at our house. And then we'll typically start halter breaking. And what we like to do when we halter break one is we want to be able to set aside 3 days in a row to halter break our steers or heifers or whatever you're showing. But a lot of people will just go and catch them on one Saturday afternoon and let them pull back and beller and be mad, and then they'll turn them loose, and then they won't talk or work with them again for another 2 or 3 weeks. And that, in our opinion, that becomes where the steer or heifer does not like it. Now, if we can do it 3 days in a row to where it's routine, we feel like that we get a lot better response on getting them broke to tie. We like to use a quick release on their jaw. So when they take a step forward, it takes the pressure off, and they learn pretty fast that way. After we get them broke to tie or what, they're and get them gentled down. We'll work on them with the stick for 2-3 days, scratching on them, combing on them, just getting them used to us, and then we'll go and then we'll try to get them on the wash rack as fast as we can. And get the water on them, get them brushed. And you know, it's a fight or whatever, but for some reason we think that that water really helps calm them down. Does anybody have any questions so far?
If you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask it directly to Mr. Ward or type it in the chat box. While they're doing that, Jeff, do you mind sharing more what you talked about with pour on?
Okay. Well, we use we'll use 3 different kinds of pour on throughout the year. The first time we'll hit them with an ivermectin or Ivomec, and that's pretty broad spectrum deal. It'll kill them pretty good. And then we'll come back in 2 to 3 weeks and then give them another shot of it, just to make sure that we get the eggs, all the eggs killed, so that there's no stragglers left behind, I guess. You know, that way we feel like we had a pretty good kill on them. And then again, like in December or January, depending if it's hot or a cold year, we'll go ahead and hit them with Cleanup 2. We feel that that stuff works really good for us. And then the ivermectin that we use at the beginning of the year, we think that that makes the skin flake pretty bad. So if we're getting closer to a show, we want to use more of an oil-based pour on than we do an alcohol-based. The alcohol-based, you know, it sure works good and everything like that, but it makes the skin flaky. So we'll use that that Cleanup 2, which is an oil-based product, because it doesn't make the skin near as flaky, and keeps that hair coming better. Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, that was great. That's great.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any more in the chat box, so let's pause real quick. And if you have one for them right now, anybody? Not hearing one, so I have another one for you, Jeff. When you talked about a quick release halter that you use when you're halter breaking them, could you describe what that looks like? Does it have a chain on the bottom with a snap, or or is it strictly all braided rope?
It's strictly a rope halter that has a figure-8 loop, and I should have brought one with me today, but I didn't. It just has a metal, kind of looks like a figure-8, that metal figure-8 that hooks into the halter. And that way, you know how those rope halters, if they get a little wet or wore out or something, they'll go to shrinking or expanding, and they don't release underneath nearly as well. And with this metal 8 that you just put into your halter, it allows it to release when they step forward. It takes the pressure off of them, and we just think that it works a lot better that way. And then when we do start tying those cattle up, we'll tie them straight to the wall. We don't tie them with their heads up or anything. We tie them straight to the wall, so that, I mean, cattle naturally don't walk with their head up like we like to have them show, you know. So most of them have their head pretty level with their back. So when, I mean, they're never going to release to that pressure until they learn to release to that pressure. They're never going to put their head up. They're always going to pull back. So we'll tie them straight to the wall instead of at an upper level when we're starting out. A lot of people will say leave the halter on them and let them drag it. We don't believe in that, because when a steer's walking through the pen and he steps on his halter, the first thing he learns is if he puts his head down, that releases the pressure off of it. So we never let them drag their halter intentionally when they're in the pen. We always take it off of them. And when we feel that when cattle are in their pen, their main objective is to be eating. So we don't want to hindrance that in any way. Great.
There's a question in the chat box. It says, why, you mentioned that what you like to get them in the wash rack right away, and you felt like the water helps calm them. The question is, why does water calm the calves from your perspective?
I don't know. I guess probably the only thing that I can um, compare it to is when you get in the shower, do you get relaxed or are you tensed up? You know, when I get in the shower, that's my relaxed time. I mean, I relax when I get in the shower. Hot water, water's running on me. Maybe not cold water, wouldn't be, but that water just kind of relaxes me, or relaxes the calf, and makes them tired, and it's just like riding a saddle horse or anything else. The more that, if you get them tired, they learn better.
Great. Any other questions at this point? Or I'm not hearing any. So Jack, you can continue with some other things you were going to share or move forward with.
Okay. So then, September, October, November, after we get that first 3 or 4 initial days on them, and like I said, we like to do those in a row so that it becomes a routine rather than a bad scenario. We get them on the wash rack, we'll get them blowed out. I need to back up. Our wash rack at our place, we have a couple of them, but and I think this is very important, and it's really easy to do if you're washing them on the dirt or whatever. But we have 2 pipes that are about 2.5 foot, 3 foot apart, that are probably shoulder high, that we tie our cattle between when we're washing them. And not only does that teach the cattle to stand straight when you're working on them, but I see on my deal here, we have a lot of young kids. And when I started with my daughter on this project, there's nothing that made me madder or any scareder when a steer would swing by and slam them into the wash rack and have you trapped. I think it's very excuse me, I think it's very important that the one thing that we have to remember is that we're dealing with children, and we don't want to get them hurt, because doctor bills cost a lot. It makes them scared of the cattle. It puts the cattle in a bad situation. Probably the biggest thing that we've learned about halter breaking and getting cattle gentle is never put them in a bad situation, in a scary situation where they're going to get hurt or somebody else gets hurt. So our wash rack, and I wish I had a picture of it or something, but it's real easy to make. Just, you can use 2 wooden posts or 2 pieces of pipe or whatever, and we just come off the tie space probably 2.5 foot, where it catches them right behind the back of the shoulders. And just for safety, and then it also teaches your cattle to stand straight, and they're not going back and forth and smashing on you, or getting you all wet, or getting themselves in a jam or you in a jam. But
another text, Jeff, another question that popped up was a question about when you said shoulder height of the animal or of you as a person, as an adult.
No, I like them probably as I want them over the top of the calf, just for and not probably only 6 to 12 inches, so that if he does jump and Link gets against it, that it doesn't catch him on the skin or whatever. I mean, he's going to have to get pretty high to get over the top of one that's over the top of him if he's tied to the wall. We have plastic caps on our pipe so that they're smooth, and I mean, nobody gets hurt that way. But yeah, and I mean, I'll give you my phone number if you want me to text you a picture of it or something when tomorrow or something, or probably the next day. I would be more than glad to do that. But
great. Another question popped up. Are you okay if I keep going with questions?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. The next question popped up says, what if you get a late start breaking your calves? And Kaylee, it's from Kaylee Porter. And Kaylee, I'm not sure if meaning in relation to what he started talking about with now or not. So Jeff, you might be able to talk about what if I just got my calf and I haven't done any of that stuff yet, so I'm way behind in terms of halter braking. Just start the same way or what?
Okay, so what we would do, and we pulled some heifers or bulls out of the pasture, and got a late start on them, and it's not impossible. It's just a lot easier when you get started if they're not nearly as big, because they're easier to manage and you manhandle them a little more. But what I would do if I was just getting started on one now, what we do is do you have a squeeze chute at home?
Kaylee said yes, she does.
Okay. What I would do is I would go and put that steer in the squeeze chute, and I would put enough. I wouldn't squeeze him to where it's uncomfortable, but I'd put enough pressure on him where he's not jumping around and moving. And I would just rub him and scratch on him and everything, because he can't get to you. You're not gonna get hurt if you're on the outside of the chute. And I would just scratch on him till he quits fighting the deal and he decides that it's a lot easier to stand there to take scratching. I would, maybe if you have one of these rubber scrub brushes, they're not pokey or whatever, but they feel pretty good when you rub it on a steer's back or, all over. Just kind of get him used to that. He's eventually gonna give up. It might take 20 minutes, it might take an hour. If you have a brother or sister or mom and dad to get on the other side and do the same thing, and just get him wore out to where he's trusting you and it's okay for you to be touching him. And then what I would do is I would put one of those quick release halters on him, and I would get him tied to something that is very secure that he's not going to pull down. And I would probably let him sit in there and let him fight that rope until he decides that it's okay to sit there and learn that he's not going to get away. And if he stands there still, you're going to be okay. And I would take my show stick after he quit fighting that. I'd take my show stick and I'd start scratching on him and rubbing on him. And that keeps you far enough away that you're probably not going to get hurt until you feel confident enough that you can reach up and grab him with one of these brushes again, and keep scrubbing on him and brushing on him and just talking to him and being easy with him and stuff like that. And then and how we start halter braking one, we'll put them in an 8-foot alleyway that's probably 16, 20 foot long, and we'll get beside them and we'll start leading them. And if they run by us, all they're going to be able to do is go to the corner. They're not going to be able to get away from you. You ought to be able to keep up with them in that amount of space. Don't ever wrap the halter around your rope or trying to stop them or whatever. But, when he runs off, all he's going to do is run down to the end of that corner and he's going to stop. And then put some pressure back on him. And when he comes to you, ask him to come to you, let him take 1 or 2 steps. If he runs off again, all he's going to do is go to the other end. He's never really going to get away. You're always going to be able to keep pressure on him at that point. And it's going to take a little bit, but if you seriously did that for 4, 5, 6 days, I think you'll see a lot of improvement.
I have a question. So, what would I do when my steer is too playful and starts nudging you?
Okay. What we do in those cases, so can you lead him about anywhere?
Like I can't personally, but my parents help me, and like he just like when we get there, he like hits the gate because he's excited, like to see us.
He runs up and if you put your hand out, he'll start rubbing his head all over your hand. But he's pretty playful, but he tries to be intimidating at the same time.
Right. Well, I don't know what I would do is I would get a hold of him. Have you put a show halter on him yet?
He has the chain halter on him.
Chain halter on?
Mm-hmm.
When you get after him with that chain halter, does he back off?
Yeah, he responds pretty well to that.
Right. I guess maybe, I don't know if this is if I should go here, but what I would do with him is we have a fiberglass sorting stick at our house, and when he got ready to come towards me with it, he would catch one right across the bridge of the nose.
Okay.
Until he backs off, and it ain't gonna take very many of them for him to decide that ain't what he wants to do anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what we would do at our house. I don't know if that's right, and there'll probably be a lot of people that tell you that that's not right, but that's what we would do.
Right.
Yeah, like when we go feed him, we go in his stall and pour it, and he'll like run towards you, and then like he'll stop, but like you don't think he's gonna stop, and he just wants to get his territory and play.
Yeah, I guess I would. Somebody needs to show him who the boss is, and it probably needs to be you. And I don't know if that'll work, but that's what I would do. Anybody else have a question?
Thanks, Jeff. I don't see anything else in the chat box, so.
Okay. So, and it's hard. I know it's hard with, especially the older these kids get and stuff, the amount of time that we put into them and whatever. But, from about November to weigh-in time, what we do is we try to catch ours at least once a week. Even if it's just Saturday afternoon or Sunday or whatever. And what we'll do then is, at our house, we're very fortunate because we have an indoor wash rack, and I know a lot of you kids probably don't have that, but we wash and blow all those steers out, or heifers or whatever you got. And the reason we do that is to keep, how many of you have a lot of poop balls on your legs right now? Because it's been wet and muddy.
I see some smiles of nodding.
Yeah, and the reason we try to keep those off because we want to keep as much hair on them as we possibly can this time of year. And if you have to pull all those poop balls off, hair's going to come with it. So we try to keep ours bedded in wood peeling or wood shavings, which we're very fortunate here because we have a couple mills and they're not very expensive, but at least try to keep them on some straw out of the mud anyway. And that'll also help your efficiency when it's time for feeding one too, because he's not laying in the cold in the mud. If you got him up on some bedding of some kind, he'll be more efficient with the amount of feed you're feeding him. But so we just try to keep them, at least once a week through November through January, February. Of course, if you're going to the National Western or something like that, you're going to be working on them a lot more. But where your end point for most of you is August, just a little refresher course and getting the dirt blowed out of them and, the mud out of them and stuff like that. It just, we think that helps a bunch.
Jeff, there was a question in the chat box about, is there an easier or different way to do that of getting the tags off from washing? Can you use a curry comb or something else, or is there a better way of doing that?
Well, if you don't have a wash rack to get them soaked up and mudded up, you know, I like to use this comb, and it's a shedder comb, and we use these a lot. We're going to start using them like daily here pretty soon, but I don't know, it seems to knock them off pretty good. A round comb or a curry comb sure works. The thing about that is that it pulls awful hard. And if you have a lot of mud balls on right now, you're not going to get them all off on one day. Or if you are, your arm's going to be so tired that you're not going to be able to pick it up when you go to the house that night. So what we do is we'll put some oil on them. You can use some rose oil or purple oil, and that'll help soften them up. Then go back the next day, do a little more scraping, put more of that oil on them. It just kind of helps break it down. And we've had good luck doing that. Before we had an indoor wash rack, that's what we'd do if we got behind on that. But now we just we just soak them up as most we can, scrub through them, and then re-soak them, scrub through them, re-soak them, or scrub through them. It's a pain. That's why we've learned that doing it all year long is a lot easier than trying to do it now. You know, we're sitting at the 1st of April now, so April, May, June, July, August, you got 150 days. You could potentially shear some of those poop balls off if they're really bad, like on the bellies, and just take your clippers and shear them off. But be careful not to get your head kicked off doing that, because and pulling the mud balls also too. That's one thing that I think is very, very important, is every kid needs to own, before you buy any other fitting supply or anything else, I think the most important thing you can own is a good chute for safety for not only you but the animal. You know, and there's a million of them around. A lot of them are nicer than others, but there's a lot of them that are very useful that wouldn't cost very much. Everybody's used to be a big thing to build one in shop class. Of course, everybody used them, build them out of drill stem, and takes 3 guys to pack them. But if you have that steer in that chute and that kid's working on them, they're a whole lot safer than if they're tied to a post. I do know that.
Great. Got a couple more questions, and I don't know where you're at in your process of sharing today, Jeff. So if you got a bunch on your list to keep going through, I don't want to keep.
No, it's good.
You're good. Okay.
I'm good. Whatever you guys want to know, I'll tell you how we do it. I don't know if it's right, but I'll tell you how we do it.
We're good. So a couple more questions related to it. One is, if you're planning on going to the National Western Stock Show with maybe a catch-a-calf or some other calf right now, how many times would you be washing them a week right now versus later on?
Okay, so
I guess, Jeff, I would say you could probably frame that in terms of county fair as well.
Right, right. So before my kid became a high schooler, and we were and now she's involved in so much FFA. Everybody's getting ready for state FFA and everything like that. But when the time change started, we would at least try to do those calves 2 days a week for our county fair. Now, with FF, we probably only get them done once a week. We'll actually go through and we'll we'll wash them with soap and water and blow them dry, and we put some stuff in their hair. But a good rule of thumb is 150 days. Your best hair is going, a hair cycle is 150 days. So right now we have cattle that are really starting to lose their hair. They're starting to slip their hair because they're turning into a new hair cycle. And what we do is we'll take this shedder brush and we'll rub it all through their body. And you'll have to do it more than once, but you'll get a lot of hair out. You can fill a 5-gallon bucket full of hair if they're really haired up, and get all that dead hair out. And what that does is allow the new hair to come. And when Sage, my daughter, gets out of school, she will rinse her steers twice a day, every day from now until the last day of state fair.
Okay, and then the other question that's posted up there is maybe you talked about soaping them up. They're assuming that's with shampoos of some sort. The question is, are there some good shampoos that you recommend?
You know, that's a funny question, and we get that a lot. And you know, you can spend a lot of money on soap, and 99% of it goes down the drain. What we like to do is go to Walmart and buy the cheapest human shampoo we can buy. We love Suave at our house. And then, and we wash every day. Well, she'll soap them. We'll soap cattle every day because at our house, our hot water is so hard. But if you take one of these foamers like this and you put as much shampoo in that as it would as you were washing your own hair, and then fill it all the way up with water, you can do at least one cow with it. So I think this is a very good investment. I think it costs, I don't know, 17 to 22 bucks depending on where you do it. But this will save you more soap than it'll pay for itself in 1 month just for the amount of soap that you'll save. And so I think everybody needs to own one of them. There's several different kinds. Sullivan sells them, Weaver sells them, Easy All sells them, but they're pretty much all the same. But I think that is a very good product. You know, Sullivan sells 2 or 3 different kinds of shampoo. Weaver sells a couple shampoos. We like to be cheap, so we'll buy the cheapest soap that we can buy. Human soap we can buy at Walmart or Safeway or wherever you do your shopping. One thing that we do spend a little more money on than some people, I'm a firm believer in this Pro Charge. It's a Weaver product. Sullivan also has a product that is a lot like this. We prefer the Weaver because it doesn't have any of the bad stuff in the aerosol that causes cancer. So we try to use all Weaver products. But in the morning, so I'll go back to my original program here. So here coming up, we'll get these cattle shedded out and get all the dead hair out of them. And then when we'll start feeding, we'll feed at daylight, and we allow those cattle about an hour out. And they'll be in the barn all day. But so on a typical morning, we'll get up, we'll feed, we go eat breakfast, and then we go and catch cattle, and we'll catch everything that we're putting in the barn, anywhere from 5 to 7 head. Everything gets caught, and everything gets their head tied up, that are tied high, at that time, and then they'll start rotating through the wash rack. And when we will pull them in the wash rack, we blow them out with a blower, get all the dirt and sawdust out of them, and then we'll wash them with a foamer. And then we take we'll take one of these rubber scrub brushes and we'll brush, and we brush everything forward, not up and down, not in circles, everything forward, training that hair to go towards the head. And then we'll rinse them out, and then we take one of these brushes, a rice roots brush, and we'll comb them, and we'll get all that hair going the same direction that we want to do. The new style is to part the back legs, where the front of the leg goes to the front and the back of the leg goes to the back, which I really can't show you here. But we'll get all that going, and then we take the blowers and we'll blow them, and we'll blow them completely dry. And it takes a little time, but we'll blow them completely dry, and then we tie them in the barn under the fans with their head up till everybody's done. And then when that way, I mean, everybody's going to have their head tied up. If she's got 5 head, everybody's going to have their head tied up for almost 2 hours. And then we drop them and let their heads down underneath the fans, and then they can lay down all day, or if they're up or down, that's their choice, until evening time before we turn them out. And then everybody's head gets tied back up again. We'll bring them back in the wash rack, and we and then we'll what we do is we take a fogger that hooks to the blower, and we'll take that fogger and we put insecticide pellet and fly spray in there. Just we use white. Is it called white? Comes in a little silver can or whatever. Put a little of that in there, add a little water in it. We'll put that on them. We'll comb it forward again with the brushes, and then we'll blow them dry again and then kick them out. But we think it's a lot of people, back when I was your guys' age, we used to take those cattle and turn them out wet. But we have found out since then that as far as hair growth goes, it works better if you blow that hair out and bust it out. But I don't know. We put the insecticide on them for the simple fact that our mosquitoes are so terrible in the summertime, and just to try to make it a lot more comfortable for them when they go back out of the barn.
That might be why I have lost my hair, Jeff, as I've been going out with it wet too often.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking at the chat box real quick. I don't see any questions there. Okay, if you have more you want to continue on with, Jeff, or you keep going with that,
Okay,
wherever you're at.
So, and then another thing that we do at home, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but like I said, it works at our house. Everybody wants to practice their showmanship the night before you turn those cattle out to feed, and we have found out that doesn't work very good. So, because those cattle know that it's time to go eat, so they leave, they're anxious to go back to their home pen. So when we're taking them to the wash rack, we'll set them up, we'll walk them into their profile position, we'll make them stand there, we'll scratch on them with the halter or with the show stick, we'll put them on the wash rack, and then do the routine that I told you that we did. And then when we come off the wash rack, we go back out, we walk them into their position, we work on them with the stick, we lead them around in a circle, we'll walk them into position, and then we take them and put them underneath the fans. This is, I don't know. If you just get in the routine of doing it every time, making those cattle stand how they need to be standing in the show ring, it is so much easier when it comes time to show.
Great. There's another question that popped up, a couple of them. One of them says, so in the evening you fog them rather than rinse? They're trying to make sure they understood.
Right. Well, and it varies. A lot of the time we'll rinse them and then we'll fog them with insecticide. Most of the time that's probably what we do because that's what the cow boss prefers. I think you can probably get by with just fogging them, getting them pretty wet with the fogger, and brushing that hair really good and getting it started how you want it and everything, and then blow it dry. But my daughter, she'll rinse every day, or she'll wash in the morning and rinse at night. I think you can get by with the fogger, but sometimes she doesn't listen to me very good.
Well, the hair on girls takes a little more to work.
Right,
so,
right.
It probably applies the same way. Right. The other question in there is that when do you start doing this daily routine you're talking about? You said here pretty quick. Do you wait till school gets out till that starts, or are you already going?
Well, we'll wait till after state FFA convention because my daughter's not home to do it. So, and I think that the kid needs to be involved in doing it. I mean, anytime you want to start, I mean, the earlier the better, but you better be rocking and rolling 120 days from state or from your county fair if you want the best hair you could possibly get.
So that's
and even if you can't do it every day this time of year, I understand. I mean, sometimes it's too cold or people have activities. If you could do it once or twice, I mean, the more you do it, the more success you're going to have. But once school gets out, you better be doing it every day.
Okay, Jeff, this isn't in the chat box, but it's another question I just wanted to ask is you talked about some early vaccination and care stuff early on. Are there other things they need to be doing throughout like April, May, right now, this time frame?
Okay, so when we weigh our cattle in the first weekend of February, when you weigh them in officially for 4-H project, we give another set of vaccinations at that time, and then we'll go ahead and pour them again with the oil-based one and cleanup too, and then we'll pour them again at that time, and then we give them a 7-way and another live virus vaccine at that time, and then the only other time that we would vaccinate for, if we're going to a big show or someplace where cattle are going to be there overnight, we might give them an Enforce 3 just for an extra boost in immune, and that's just a shot that goes in the nose. And we'll probably do that. We would do that before our county fair, and that will last us through state fair. The only thing you got to be careful of is make sure that there's not a withdrawal period on it, but I don't think that there is on any on a Nasalgen shot. And then we also use a product that's called VitaCharge. That it's just it helps them stay on feed, and it takes the stress out of them so that they stay on feed. If we're going to go to a show, we'll give it to them the night before we leave, the morning that we do leave, and then we'll give it to them the night that we get to the show, and it just helps them stay on feed and drink water. That's another point that I wanted to make also, is most wrecks or most kids, the biggest complaint that I hear at county fair is my steer won't drink. He's going to die if he doesn't drink. Well, probably the problem with that is he's never had an opportunity or never had to drink out of a bucket. And that's one thing that we'll do during the summer is after lunch or whatever, we'll give everybody an opportunity to have a drink out of a bucket so that they're used to drinking a bucket. And then if it gets really, really hot in the summer and we don't want to turn out till it cools off, till it's dark or whatever, then we'll feed at night in feed pans, which is also another good reason for doing that is if you got two steers in the same pen and one of them weighs 1090 right now and one of them's only weighing 750, there's a pretty good chance that one of them's getting more feed than the other one. And this way you know what your steers are eating. If you feed at feed pans, we try to do it at least once a day, feeding feed pans rather than just throwing it in the bunk and going to the house.
Great. And then there was another question that popped up that asked about what you said you put in the fogger again for your fogger mix. You said there was insecticide.
Our fogger mix, it's really complex, but we use water and a fly spray. And you can go to Murdoch's and buy numerous different kinds. We use the stuff that's called white. So white Repellex is, I believe, makes it. And it comes in a little blue jug, and we squirt a little bit of that in there, and we fill it up, and we put that on them. So
No hair product in your fogger.
no hair product at night because they've already had this in them in the daytime, or because we'll put this on them after we wash them and blow it in, and it's called Pro Charge. It's a reconditioning spray made by Weaver. So
Okay.
we use lots of it. One can will probably last us, we'll go through one can a day and probably use it on 6 head.
Okay, there's no more questions in the chat box. Do you have other things you want to share, Jeff?
If you're just getting started, I think one of the most important things is, one of the most important pieces of equipment other than a blocking chute you can buy is probably a blower. I think a blower will, if you take care of it, they're very expensive. We just bought a brand new one, cost $400. But you can train more hair and do more good stuff, make cattle gentler with a blower, and you don't have to be real close to them to be effective to it. I mean, until they get used to it, But if you run your blower correctly, it'll do just as good at training hair as anything. I mean, if you use it consistently and every day, get that hair blowed out. I guess if I was just starting, the first thing I would buy is a block and chute and a blower and borrow somebody's clippers because, I mean, this is a very expensive habit that we're getting into, and if you just ease yourself into it, it's not gonna break the bank. But if you use a blower correctly, and if you don't know how to use a blower correctly, go find somebody that does. Somewhere in your county, there's somebody that knows how to do this stuff. And 99% of them would be more than glad to help you.
And I would just add, most of those are your older teenagers that you see competing in that senior division or college kids that have just left the program. And you ask them, and if they don't know, it's probably because they forgot to learn themselves and just didn't learn along the way, but most of them will know.
Right. And that's another thing. I mean, if you're going to be successful at showing cattle, and you can define success a lot of different ways, but I mean, not every successful cattle project gets a purple ribbon I mean, there's a lot of successful cattle projects that last year their steer didn't make weight, but this year it did. So, but my point being is go and educate yourself by looking at the people that are successful. Go ask questions. I mean, there is a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of people that are willing to share it. Don't have the attitude that they always win. Go find out why they win. You know, what they're doing to be better at what they're then how they're being successful. Because it's not a industry of secrets. You just have to prepare yourself. You have to prepare yourself to win. You know, I mean, doing your homework is a lot. 99% of winning in 4-H.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm checking the chat box. And I don't see anything else there. Did you have more on your list, Jeff? I'm just checking time, so we're about to the end, but.
Okay, I'm good. I mean, any questions? If anybody has any questions, you can sure chat in now. I have my phone 24/7, so if you have any questions you didn't want to ask now, or if you think of something next week, give me a call and I'll sure tell you what we would do. I mean, I'm not saying that ours is 100% correct. This is what we do, and we feel we get the most success out of. I sure don't want you to tell your mother, well, this is how Jeff Ward told me to do it, so you don't know. You know, there's a lot of other people that are way more qualified than I am, but I know that this is what works at our house, and I sure hope that it works at your house if you try it. So.
Well, thank you, Jeff. I'm going to share my screen back over, everybody, to as we finish up. I told you we got some door prizes that have been provided to this evening to give away. So we have these 3 door prizes that have been sponsored by Show Kids 4-H Club, a halter, and it's only going to those that are on the call tonight. So to enter in that, you need to get a piece of paper out and answer these 5 questions. I'll leave this up and leave the call on for a little while so you have time. Put your name on it and answer these 5 questions. And then take a picture of it with your phone if you can, and then text that number, your picture, to this phone number. And again, I'll put that up here in a little bit, but you have time to answer these questions, and then you'll be entered in that drawing. Probably on Monday, they will draw the winner of that, and they'll let you know. And if you've won something, we'll figure out how to get it to you, okay? Great. I'll leave that again there. And let's thank Jeff for participating and helping us out tonight. Mr. Ward, we appreciate your knowledge and experience and helping all of us this evening learn and do better in our livestock projects. So thank you very much for
Okay,
participating.
there's some people asking my phone number.
Yep. Would you like to share it, or do you want me to share it later on with people?
No, 307 399 9863.
A bunch of thumbs up to that, Jeff. So watch out. They'll be calling you now.
All right.
Yep. Okay, thanks, everybody. And thanks, Jeff, again for participating with us.
Yep, no problem.
I'm going to leave this up for a little while, you guys. You can answer your questions and get entered for that drawing. Otherwise, if you're done, thanks for joining us, and you can sign off. Is there anybody that needs me to stay on still so you can write the questions down? Or okay, I just didn't want to hang up on you, Samantha. I'll stay on. We're good. And you don't have to write the questions. You can just write the answers to the questions. That's good enough, okay?